I can do what I want when I want to do it. I can do what I need when I need to get through it. When I need someone else, can't be too proud for help, but gotta look after myself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day is. What a good day is. And that's exactly what the day is. But it's exactly what you make it. So please don't go wasting. And I'll do the same, even if it's raining. How could I complain? And my feels got me feeling some type of way. You always free to take a break. Hope you feel what I felt. You gotta look after yourself. Sometimes it can get lonely, never living in the moment. When the sun is shining, hope that I'm reminded, like how the clouds keep changing. I'm always steady rearranging, going back to the basics of what a good day is. What a good day is. What a good day is. What a good day.
All right, y'all, you know what time it is.
What a day.
On this Monday morning, shout out to everybody who's in the building. Thank y'all so much for being here. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can see me. We should be good. I see y'all in there dropping the ones already. Let me double check and make sure I've got this all set up. We should be good to go. Thank you to everybody who's in here showing love. I see y'all. I see y'all. I see you. I see you. All right, we should be good. Let's see how we're looking over here though. My goodness. Oh, there we go. Ooh, wee, looking all crispy and clean on the screen. Welcome y'all. Welcome back to another YouTube live stream and another episode of the Music Morning Show. I'm your host, ClassE Beats of ClassEbeats.com. And today we're going to get into it. We got a lot to go over. Of course, as usual, our guy Yak Gotti is still in jail. And it's looking like he's not going to be out until next year. We're going to talk about Tony Busby and Jay-Z. They're still going at it. And then we're going to get into Judge Joe Brown taking some shots at Young Thug. Shout out to Amy for those videos. It's getting crazy. But before we get into it, I got to say what's up to the people, man. Good morning to everyone who's in here. Shout out to my awesome, amazing Amy in here. Always showing love, reminding y'all to like the video. Thank you, Amy. And I appreciate everything that you do. You already know that though. Taco Tuesday says good morning. Olivia Rose is up in here. Alejandra, good morning. Rice Street, my dog in the building. What's up, Rice Street? A Fitz, Mr. Brown, Lady E, Susan. We've got Jane Lawson says, oh, look at Jane Lawson. I'm in Scotland, so morning to y'all's, but it's afternoon here. It's also bloody freeze. Can I say bloody on YouTube? That's a curse word over there. It's also bloody freezing here, and happy Christmas to y'all. Thank you so much, Jane. And shout out to everyone who's in the UK and across the pond over there. Appreciate y'all. Michi in here, Les Cleaver, Beverly, Nicholas, Monterisa. We've got Michelle. Good morning. Gerald is in here as well. We got Anton back at it. Valencia. Good to see you as always. Who else? Oh, I missed a bunch of y'all. Hold on. Mingo is in here. We've got beautiful Nene up in the building. We've got Miss Collins in here. Good to see you, because I'm going to mess up your name. Nicholas. We got Star Wars Iron Giant is in here as well. Thank you for sliding through. I appreciate you. All right. I know y'all have been waiting and are ready to get into it. We've got a very interesting show today. As I mentioned, our guy Yak Gotti still behind bars, unfortunately. Looks like he's not going to get home for Christmas, and we're going to go over that and give y'all a little bit review as we get into the show. If you could please make sure that you like the video on your way in. Not only is it free, Not only does it help the show continue to grow, but it lets the algorithm know that y'all are enjoying the show, and it shares the video with more people. We just hit 91,000 subscribers over the weekend, which is insane. So thank you again to everybody who's been supporting, liking the video, sharing it, commenting. The engagement means so much to me and so much to this channel and the growth that we're continuing to do. So numbers don't mean everything, but it's cool to see the progress as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. Shout out to John, salute, and thank you for your service, sir. Mr. Tesla's in here. We got Uncommon Sense is in the building. Benjamin's up in here as well. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, I think I said what's up to everybody. Let's go ahead and get into it. So as we know, a lot has happened over this past week and the past couple of weeks, especially when it comes to Yak Gotti. Some of you know that he was recently denied bond. He tried to have a bond hearing. Caleb Bumpus is representing him now. And then something came up in this bond hearing to where Yak Gotti found out, or I don't even if you want to say realized, he found out, and so did Kayla, along with the judge, that Yak Gotti had a warrant out because of a probation violation. Now, it's been a lot of speculation circulating this, trying to figure out where this came from. Probation officer got on the Zoom call with the judge and said, "Hey, judge, we're going to have to figure this out because he's got a warrant and I don't see how you could let him out on bond with that being the case." So now we have this bond hearing that we got to see here. And thanks to Thugger Daily for posting that. And it basically gives the reasons, which we know, I mean, they're pretty much BS, right? The only reason that his bond was denied is because of the probation violation. Now, we still have these issues he has to deal with when it comes to what happened while he was in jail. He got some of his commissary or something stolen from him. And there's allegedly, according to the state, some video of Yak Gotti saying, "Hey, I got to do what I got to do." Him and a couple other guys allegedly ganged up on the guy that supposedly took his commissary or whatever he was missing. Also, I think he was accused of having a cell phone or something in jail, but I don't think that's a part of the charges. And y'all can see them here. He's got aggravated battery, aggravated assault, and riot in a penal institution, which we've heard is super easy to get charged with. If you and another person and a third party get into an argument or an altercation, it can be seen, or you could be charged with the riot in a penal institution. I'm going to get the word right eventually. So now we fast forward to this weekend or late on Friday, and we find out that Yak Gotti's probation hearing isn't going to take place until February 7th, which is unfortunate because we had a hearing that was supposed to take place more recently than that. And I asked Thugger Daily about this once he posted this new update. Thugger Daily said Yak Gotti's probation revocation hearing isn't until February 7th. So unless something changes, the only person found not guilty on all charges in the YSL case will be in jail at least until then, which is really, really sad. Yak Gotti, as we know, he's the only one who was found not guilty on all charges, not guilty on RICO, not guilty on the murder charge, of course, of Donovan Thomas. And then we have this hearing, which isn't scheduled until February 7th. And he's just going to have to sit in jail and wait for whatever reason. We don't even know why. And then I asked Thugger Daily about this. I said, so what happened to the January 8th hearing with Judge Whitaker? Because he was supposed to have a hearing there. Thugger Daily said that was just an arraignment on his case, which was the YSL trial case. Nothing to do with the probation, revocation, or bond. And he's probably waiving it anyway. It never happened. And then we have this from Joseph Papp. So what happened with those other hearings, or with the warrant hearing, and how are we going to move forward? Well, Joseph Papp posted this over on X as well when it comes to Yak Gotti. And he says this: Kendrick won't have a hearing until February on his probation sentence because it appears they scheduled his first appearance on the probation warrant, but the defendant was not brought before the court on the 19th day of December of 2024, which is weird to see because they had everything set up. He was ready to go. He was ready to try and get this figured out. but they're saying that he wasn't brought before the court. We still don't know what that means. But let's look at this from, and shout out to Joseph Papp. This was posted on Friday, late Friday afternoon. And this was the first appearance warrant action order. The defendant did not appear before this court for a first appearance hearing on a case in warrant status. Obviously, he didn't appear because they either didn't have the information, or he was held up somehow, or they still had to figure out what was going on and how they were going to attack this, because at that point they didn't even know the warrant existed. And as we saw in previous videos where we talked about this, the warrant wasn't signed until that day. The defendant was brought before the court on the 19th day of December 2024. The court confirmed there was a bond surrender / bench warrant. So there was a probation warrant for the defendant's arrest. And then we see review of this case confirms that there is a probation warrant for the arrest of the above named defendant. The pursuant to said existence, the defendant has been advised of his rights and provided with the notice of the court dates and the assigned judge. Now, there's some speculation going behind the scenes of the judge who handled this. Judge Leffridge, I think is her name. They're saying that she does things very slowly, unfortunately. Now, Kayla has came out and commented on that and said that's not usually the case, that Judge Leffridge will move things through the process as quickly as possible. But it's also interesting, not only her connections to Fani Willis, but how she was able to sign this warrant and get it before the court so quickly. It just seems like something isn't adding up. And this case is assigned to Judge Leffridge. There she is. The division has been or will soon be notified so that the judge can address the issues of the defendant's warrant. And we even see, if you do more research into Judge Leffridge, she's recused herself several times for being involved in anything happening with this YSL case because of a past relationship she had with someone who was in the sheriff's department. So it just gets all weird, and there's a lot of stuff going on here that doesn't make sense. And it's clear to see that obviously Fani Willis, she's hurting from the recent losses she's taken, whether it's in the Trump case, being removed from that. We all know that she appealed the court's decision there, to her taking the L's in the YSL case, and especially with Diamante Kendrick, because he was found not guilty on all charges. So it's clear that they're trying to send a message, but that's not all that's going here. As we mentioned before, Diamante Kendrick is the only defendant out of 28 defendants that was found not guilty on all charges. Doug Weinstein made a quick video about it over on TikTok. He went to visit Diamante Kendrick as well before he got ready for the holidays. And it's just really sad to see what's going on here.
As I said yesterday, I went to go visit Diamante in jail in Union City. And I guess, it's interesting, this article, I think it ran right around the same time or right after. I saw it right after. And I really appreciate Joseph Papp writing this article in the AJC. I did not know that he would be doing this, but it's really appreciated. Of course, it's just a sad situation, and it's very clear to anyone paying attention that this has been done out of probation, purely out of spite. No,
absolutely.
DA's office technically is not responsible for probation, putting a warrant out regarding the activities that Diamante is alleged to have been a part of while he was locked up in Rice Street. But you can't help but feel that there's some type of coordination or communication going on in this effort to not release Diamante after he's been found not guilty. The only defendant, by the way, with not guilties all the way across the board, and he is locked up. It's just not right.
Yeah, and shout out to Doug for introducing that as well, because I want to read this article from Joseph Papp. I wasn't originally going to do this, but I think he gives us some good insight into where the connections are being made as to why they're choosing, and specifically Fannie Willis, because she's had her fingerprints and even her signature all over this, just why they're choosing to do this now. Because this all could have been addressed way before this case. There was a verdict in the YSL trial. This all could have been done months ago, years ago even. And now they're waiting to this point to where he's supposed to be out. It's unfortunate. This YSL defendant was acquitted, but will spend the holidays behind bars. One defendant in the long-running YSL case has been acquitted of all charges by a jury earlier this month. However, he's going to be stuck in jail for the holidays due to a legal technicality. And we'll call it just some shady work, let's be honest. A Fulton County judge ruled Wednesday that due to an outstanding warrant against Diamante Kendrick, also known as the rapper Yak Gotti, he can't be free on bond for the charges he picked up while housed at the Union City Jail Annex during the YSL trial. The warrant itself alleges a probation violation by Kendrick, who pleaded guilty to a number of gang and gun and drug charges in 2017. As a part of that plea, he was sentenced to 15 years commuted to time served, followed by 8 years on probation, with the remaining 5 suspended, right? And that was back in 2017. He was then arrested and indicted along with Atlanta rapper Young Thug in May of 2022 on gang and racketeering charges, but he beat those charges, and congratulations to him. During the trial, Kendrick was accused of having contraband in jail in March 2024 and being involved in the aggravated assault and battery of a fellow inmate in June of 2024, which prosecutors said triggered a violation of his 2017 probation. So this is the background of why we're going through this whole thing. Now, this happened back in March. This could have been settled way before then. And we had it happen in June. Still plenty of time to get this settled and taken care of. But they didn't issue the warrant for this, as we know, until the 20th, which was the day he had his bond hearing. Y'all see how this is going? But the warrant was still not processed until Fulton County Superior Court Judge Leffridge signed it on Wednesday, a day after Kendrick's bond hearing. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney said in his order that Kendrick's request for bond can't be granted until the warrant issue is resolved. Kendrick's next hearing, a plea deal and an arraignment on the aggravated assault charges, has been scheduled for January 8th in front of the Superior Court Judge Paige Reese Whitaker. Shout out to the Honorable Judge Whitaker. And that is the hearing I was asking Thugger Daily about. So now we're kind of seeing how everything comes together. Prosecutors allege that Kendrick has had 13 jail indictments, 10 are allegations of violence, and 3 are allegations of contraband since he was arrested in May of 2022. Defense attorney Devin Rafis, hopefully I said that right, who has filed the YSL case, said the fact that the warrant wasn't brought up until the day of Kendrick's bond hearing seems retaliatory, given that both Fulton County prosecutors and the Georgia Department of Community Supervision, which handles probation in the state, knew about the charges for months. We've been saying this. They knew about this well before the bond hearings, probation, probably before the indictment too, Rufus said. My take on it is they saw an opportunity where Mr. Kendrick could have potentially got out on bond. So they said, hey, let me file this probation warrant. That way we'll make sure to hold him and prevent him from getting out. Nasty, nasty work. This system is so flawed, y'all. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reached out to the Georgia Department of Community Supervision for comment on the timing of the warrant. A spokesperson for the district attorney's office said that handling such warrants was not under the prosecutor's purview. Yeah, because it was under the DA's purview. And they called up the probation officer, said, hey, talk to the judge real quick. Probably got a text from Fannie or someone in the office. And then Judge McBurney said, guys, we got to stop. We've got an issue. Man, Based on what happened at Tuesday's bond hearing, Rafis said it will be hard to get the probation warrant lifted to get Kendrick's bond. Man, essentially, Mr. Kendrick is going to be sitting in jail until they can get the probation case worked out and they can have a hearing on it. Rafis said. Kendrick's attorney, Caleb Bumpus, said during the hearing Tuesday that it's common for clients to pick up charges at the jail when bond is denied or after spending a long time in custody, because we talked about this. There are jail politics, which the law doesn't protect them against, but still, excuse me. It's very sad to say, but normally when I pick up a client where I can't get bond immediately, that's a double client because they're going to get a jail case. Bumpus told Judge McBurney, it's almost inevitable. And y'all know Kayla's history in Fulton County is that she is the jail queen. She can get almost anyone out of jail. Woody mentioned that in his testimony. He was having issues. He's like, y'all, I need somebody to defend me. I need somebody to get me out on bond. They said, call Caleb Bumpus. While awaiting the jury verdict in the YSL trial, Kendrick was stabbed at the Union City Annex. Days after the stabbing, he was acquitted on all charges. Rafis said if Kendrick would have been found guilty on the YSL charges, the probation issue likely would have not been brought up. Well, yeah, because he wouldn't have been before Judge McBurney. Some of Kendrick's co-defendants, including Young Thug, have been released from jail over the past 2.5 years after agreeing to guilty pleas and being sentenced on probation. Others have pleaded guilty to charges but are in prison due to previous sentences and convictions. His co-defendant, Shannon Stillwell, also known as Shannon Jackson, was also acquitted of his most serious charge and was released on Tuesday after entering a plea on his outstanding unrelated charges. And we saw that with Max and Shannon, and he's all good to go there. 4 additional defendants still face charges in the YSL case and are expected to go to trial in late February 2025. So guys, the job's still not done. We still have to call out and shine a light on what's happening here in the Fulton County court system. I feel like we're only covering the surface of this because, as you know, with the DA's office, specifically with Fannie Willis, she has continued to bend the law to whatever she needs to do. And this is just another example of that. We're going to be here to report on it, to shed a light on, and hopefully start to make a change specifically here in Fulton County. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. And shout out to my guy, Dr. EJ, up in here gifting 10 memberships. Thank you, Dr. EJ. If you got a membership from him, please make sure that you say thank you. I appreciate the love, Dr. EJ. I need to get you up in the banner too. Shout out to Dottie is in the building. Amazing Grace is up in here. Good morning. It's always good to see you. It's scary, man. It's scary to think. We're going to get into what Judge Joe Brown had to say about this in a minute, but just seeing how easily the legal system can be twisted and changed, and how they can hold on to issuing a warrant and even these charges for what happened months and months and months ago until you've been acquitted. And then you have to sit in jail over the holidays for nothing. Just because the judge is going to be out of town. It's like, oh, well. It's like getting arrested on Friday night. I mean, that's probably the worst time to get arrested because you're going to sit in jail over the weekend. Yeah, Antoine Bishop said, are you an Atlanta voter? Yes, I'm a Fulton County voter. And I did my part, Anton. I did my part. I voted for change, and only 32% of us here in Fulton County wanted change. And I think it's a lot of it has to go into education. Most people, especially here, when they vote in Fulton County, they see a familiar name, they check it off, say, okay, I'm going to go with that person. Or they see a certain party and they say, okay, I'll go with that person. Or in a lot of cases here, and I think if I have to look, I want to look before I say this, but I even believe that Sheriff Labatt ran unopposed. So a lot of it, you just don't have the people in the right places to be able to even vote for change, which is interesting to see. I want to see if he The bot. Let me see. So Labat got voted in again, but I'm trying to see if he ran unopposed. I can't remember. Let's see. He cruised to a victory, securing 54% of the vote. Either way, I can't find it right now. It's going to take a lot of work to get that type of change here, especially when people are so party loyal, so race loyal, gender loyal. We got a lot of work to do. Antoine Bishop says, you Atlanta voters voted these candidates in office with this black woman, with this black woman power, and we don't need a black man. And oh yeah, I see what you're saying. And look how they do black men when in political office. I mean, you're right. And they said the same thing about Kamala too. It was one of the main reasons that she lost is because of how the messaging there, Anton. And even what she did while Kamala was a DA. And she's like, hey guys, you're going to be able to smoke weed if I get in office. It's like, what? That's what you think of us? Not the greatest look, but we still, people don't do the research. They aren't conscious of what's going on in their own county. They aren't conscious of the power that they have, even in their own county, and how that could affect them. Seeing all of this that's going on, can y'all imagine getting locked up in Fulton County just for one day? In the past, I mean, we've seen from the Department of Justice report that there's been 7 people who have died just being held for 24 hours. So within the first 24 hours that they got into this Fulton County jail system, gone. Innocent people. We have an innocent man that's in jail right now. Rice Street said he ran against 4 other people. Yeah, okay, so it's not Labat. I was thinking of somebody else. I'll have to go back and find it. Mr. Tesla said she thought she thought we was going to fall for that. Nikolai said, can everyone please like the video? Can we please? Sharice Washington says, don't go there, dude. It's not that we don't need our black men, but some of you need to step up. It's a beautiful thing to see our black women hold these positions. Not Fannie Willis. Not Miss Love. Miss Hilton, maybe. So 2 out of 3 is not looking great for your argument there, but I get what you're saying, Sharice. I think we have to take it on a case by case basis. Just because someone's black and because she's a female doesn't mean she needs to be in this position. Definitely not Fannie. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this next video. This one's going to be a little bit more entertaining, and I cannot wait to hear y'all's take on this one, because Judge Joe Brown, he's up here cutting up. I could not believe in this take. And if y'all haven't seen this, make sure you go check out Amy's channel. Let's give Amy a round of applause. Putting out some great content, putting out some great videos as well. This was one of my favorite ones that she's posted. Judge Joe Brown is up here taking shots at Young Thug, saying if he was so tough, he should have stayed his butt in jail and went to verdict. Oh my gosh. What do y'all think about this? We're going to check out this video, and the link to this video will be in the description. Y'all make sure you go subscribe and show some love to Amy's channel. Here we go.
How is that? But more corruption here in Fulton County, just showing you the judges, the DAs, the sheriffs, they're all working together to continue on the corruption that is going on down here in Fulton County. And we got to take it all down. You know, it's going to be like a domino effect. When one come down, it's going to hit them all. That's the reason why one is trying to save the other one, because it's going, but it's coming. Oh, trust me. Continue to.
No, Joe's still with us.
Do you live in Cobb County?
No,
The Cobb?
Yeah, I live next to Cobb County. I'm in Douglas County.
Douglas? Okay, somebody really needs to look into Cobb County. There's some really horrendous stuff going on, crooked stuff in the courts.
Yes.
And in their system dealing with child support, custody, and other matters. They are extorting people to get massive amounts of money out of them.
Yes.
And also something needs to be done about the bar there.
Yes.
That seems hell-bent on charging ridiculously high fees and doing very little to deliver in return. By the way, I'm not impressed with the young man copping out and now complaining about his bond. He should have had the nerve to stay where he was and let the jury, let the jury come back with his verdict. He probably would have been acquitted.
Man, this is tough. Y'all know we talked about this, and thank y'all. I was muted there for a second. We talked about this before. I will never tell anyone to stay in jail. These attorneys will not tell their clients, the person that their clients are trusting to give them good advice. They're not going to tell their clients, you need to stay in jail. They're going to say, you do what you think is best. And it's hard for us to be on this side of things and say, oh, yeah, Young Thug would have done it. He should have stayed in jail. He would have been not guilty. We saw Dennis Byron. He did an interview with an alternate juror that said if she was on the jury, if she was filling out a verdict form, she would have said guilty on all of them just because she don't like hip hop. She doesn't like hip hop. So these guys, she think they did it. Yeah, the state could have done better. So it's risky to even say this, but I'm gonna let Judge Joe Brown say what he needs to say, because I think if we look at what Young Thug and even what Keith Adams said after the verdict was read for Diamante Kendrick and Shannon Jackson, Young Thug, he's like, man, maybe I should have waited. He said it himself. So, I mean, Judge Joe Brown kind of has a point, but me personally, I'm not gonna tell someone to stay in jail. It's hard enough being in there in the first place.
The jury indicated they were going to do that had he stayed in. Now he's whining about a bond situation.
Well, you were there.
I was.
I just have one thing to say. In my 50 years of experience doing this, I despise and detest the coward.
Oh.
And what happens is a lot of times the state doesn't even have a solid case, but they had what we call
that's true.
Banned, B-A-N. We used to say, dude got banned. What does ban mean? Bluff a Negro. And that's being nice. In other words, you bluffed him into giving up all of his rights so he can whine about it later, about how he got done an injustice. Right. I've had more and more cases I can look at where I was there as the judge or the defense lawyer, and somebody did what he did. Why did he plead guilty? We were going to acquit it.
Yeah.
You know, you lose your nerve.
The problem is there's no way of knowing that, right? We just said that before. So I get what Judge Joe Brown is saying, and y'all love him or hate him. He's right. You know why? Because Young Thug said it himself. Young Thug said, dang, I should have waited. And now he's like, man, let me see what we can do. Can we get this? Because I see Yak Gotti. Yeah, he's sitting in there until February 8th, but no RICO, no murder charge. Maybe I jumped the gun here. Maybe I should have waited. Young Thug said this, and Keith Adams and Brian Steele and Young Thug's dad said in the press conference, we tried to tell him to wait. We said he needed to wait. But he went on and just said, nah, I can't be here anymore. I got to go. So However y'all feel about Judge Joe Brown, he's right in this case.
LAP, you were there in the courtroom, and what was that like? Because he did regret taking the plea deal afterwards.
So I wasn't there for Young Thugs. I was there for God. Yeah, I don't know what his feeling was. I just know afterwards when we were in the hallway, he made a call to one of the attorneys and was like, "Why y'all let me take the plea?" You know, but they did, and his father, everybody fought hard for him to not, but they went with his decision because his decision was he was ready to get home to his family. You know what I'm saying? So they went along with the decision because really, at the end of the day, the attorneys work for him. He doesn't work for the attorneys, you know, so they're going off of your energy, your fight of what you want to do. If you want to say you want to keep going, let's go. They can advise you to not if that's something that they want to, but if they advise you to keep fighting, you need to keep fighting because that means they know that they haven't won, you know, because sometimes your attorneys, especially down here, you got to be very careful with Georgia because a lot of the attorneys down here are in bed with the DAs and all of them. You know, we have the NAACP down here. The Atlanta version is the new KKK for me, you know, like I said, Ben Crump and all of them, they're supposed to be, you know, these activists. For me, they're the KKK to me, the black KKK.
Oh, all right.
You know, they are working against the people. They are not for the people. They are not, you know, you go do your investigation, even on Gerald Griggs, and see how many cases he has won and how many he done tapped out or how many he done sold out. You know, and this is just being brutally honest right now of what we're dealing with down here also in Fulton County. You know, when you get it from the city council members that they have bought the NAACP out, then you got a problem, the Atlanta version. So that's just what we're against and dealing with down here.
My reaction is I don't know if they're so much in bed with. I just think they're cowards and they're trying to collect money and not deal with the law as a profession, but as a business. And they're trying to maximize profitability. When anybody is...
That's true. And I'm going to stop him again. I will agree with that. And I've said this multiple times on the show. Fannie, she doesn't care. All she cares about is herself. We've seen it in how she conducted herself in the Trump trial, how she's conducted herself throughout this YSL trial. It's really just a resume builder for her. She's trying to get these RICO charges under her belt, and she's got RICO everywhere. It's wild.
And they're trying to maximize profitability. When anybody is put to you as an expert or an authority on something that has to do with law, ask them how many jury trials they've had.
Right.
That's what you need to do is number one. And a lot of times you'll find out there aren't any trials. Next point is back to this thing with Young Thug. His lawyer took 20 days in jail because he had the balls to refuse to disclose his sources. That's my kind of lawyer.
Okay.
I'd hire him just because he did that. Screw all the rest of it. I got a lawyer with balls. Some of the gutless stuff I've seen is just absolutely horrible. But now, you saw one plea entered. How long did it take for the judge to take the plea?
What do you mean?
It wasn't quick, wasn't it? Sir, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used in evidence against you. If you choose to remain silent, that cannot be held against you. You have a right to be represented by an attorney at all stages of these proceedings, including upon appeal. At any phase, if you cannot afford an attorney, including for purposes of appeal, the court will see to it that you have an appointed attorney to represent you. You have a right to use the subpoena powers of the court to compel production of evidence and attendance of witnesses in your own behalf. You have a right to cross-examine any witness, closely cross-examine any witness that is called against you. To test the witness's recollection, accuracy of recollection, whether there are any consistencies or inconsistencies in the testimony of the witness. Do you understand these things, sir? Sir, did you go over such things at length with your attorney? Do you have any complaints against your attorney's representation? Is there anything you asked your attorney to do that he did not do with you? Did you discuss the list of witnesses that the state indicated they might call had this matter gone to trial? Did you discuss the testimony that might be brought forth from these witnesses? Did you give an opportunity to your attorney to go find witnesses on your own behalf? Did you give names, addresses, phone numbers, or locations? Did you discuss the testimony of any potential witnesses that might have been called in your own behalf with your lawyer? Do you have any complaints that you wish to tell the court at this time about what went on? See, so you asked this thing. It would take 12 to 15 minutes per person to take a guilty plea. So what I did is I would line them up and take 20 minutes to do 10 of them, because some of the questions are the same. And I had a good memory. I just got up, Mr. Thompson, did you hear those questions? Are your answers in the affirmative? In other words, yes, you're satisfied with your lawyer, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Johnson, we've got two here. Mr. Smith, your answer, so-and-so. Now, you are charged with the following so-and-so and so-and-so, and that consists of the taking of the property of another without that person's permission and converting it to your own use. That's what we call theft. It used to be known in Tennessee as larceny. Do you understand that, sir? In order to get a conviction against you, the state would have had to put on the following proof, which would have, etc. And you go on. So it's not that you want to plead guilty, and then you go on. So, you know, Young Thug had all of these people, including the judge, advising him that it was not necessarily the right thing to do, because the crazy part about it is this thing, I want to go home, flies in the face of brave men. I'll give you the contrast with Dr. Bill Cosby.
Oh,
when
Lord.
they convicted Bill Cosby,
not Bill,
what happened is his judge had 60 days to file a written report on it. That clown took 11 months to make sure that Mr. Cosby stayed in jail as long as possible, because it was a flaky conviction that was totally stamping on the Fifth Amendment. Next thing that goes on is they came to Mr. Cosby within a week of his incarceration and offered to let him out within several days if he would just withdraw his appeal. He said,
I'll let him
no, there's a point to be proven. So you've got a blind old man in his 80s, got enough balls to stick it out so that the appellate courts in the state wound up acquitting him. And you got somebody whose name is what? Young Thug. And what does he do? He punks out because he's scared. He want to go home to mommy.
Dang, Judge Joe Brown. You didn't have to do him like that. Listen, here's my question to you guys in the chat and in the comments. Do you have enough faith in a jury of your peers to be able to see the bigger picture that Judge Joe Brown is talking about? Because what he's talking about, we might see it because we're watching the live stream of the court and what happens when the jury's not in. And we see it because we've read certain articles, and we see it because we know somebody who was close to it, and et cetera, right? But if you're on the jury, you're supposedly not having access to all of this information. So all you're seeing is what's being presented to you, what the state's saying, or the prosecution, what the defense is saying, and you have to make your conclusion from that. So it's all well and good, and it's great, Judge Joe Brown, that you can see this with your 40, 50 plus years of experience. But you're saying we're supposed to rely on the jury of our peers and a lady like Dennis Byron interviewed that's just going to throw us under the jail because his name is Young Thug. We're supposed to rely on them to make the right decision. I don't know. I can't do it. I can't do it. And honestly, we've heard several of our amazing attorneys here on the channel, like the Honorable Attorney Kel Bell, say, I hate taking it to jury. I don't want to go to a jury. I don't want to get in front of a jury. If we can figure this out, you're a first offender and you can just keep your nose clean for the next 3 years and this part of this goes away. Maybe we'll do that. We don't want to go in front of a jury and then you get a guilty verdict or you get a hung jury and then you have to stay in jail even longer. So this is a tough one for me with Joe Brown, because you're not taking into account all the information we get versus the limited information that the jury receives.
You know, and he's risking 2 more days and maybe a little bit more. That is typically what's wrong with the black community. The folk that have the voice that are perpetrating on being badasses have no balls. And frankly, it embarrasses me every time I see it.
You actually did a video a few years ago. I think it was 5 years ago.
This is wild.
Where you said that Young Thug was not too manly because he wore a dress. You was on Vlad TV. That kind of went viral back then. I think that was probably like 7 years ago.
Yeah, he ain't a man. He punked out. Flat out punked out. Now he's whining about it.
You know what I don't like is because now he's asking the court for permission to go to certain people's houses for the holiday. And if you had just stuck it out for another day or less than that and waited for the jury, you would be completely free and still not be at the mercy of the judge or the court. You get
and worse still, all of these young males trying to emulate your cowardly behavior, which is what's driving it. You're trying to put yourself off as young thug. And what are you young thug of? Nothing. You're not a badass. You a punk. You copped out. You should have stuck it out like a man would have done and gone to the end, but you dealt with the fear of it. Now, here's a stat that flies in the face of a whole lot of mess. For the last 50 years, just a little more than 2% of the people who are inmates in penitentiaries got found guilty by jury. 97+% copped out. And out of that, 84 to 87% confessed. So here these.
All right, I'll let Joe finish, but I hate this argument. In respect to Judge Joe Brown, I do not like this argument at all, because just because 2% of people in prison are there because of a guilty verdict, that doesn't necessarily mean that the other 90+% wouldn't have been found guilty. We'll never know because they didn't go that length. And again, we saw, shout out to Mel over at I'm Not a Lawyer, but she interviewed 3 of the jurors and they were like, if Thug stayed, we don't know what would have happened. There would have been more evidence presented by Brian Steele and Keith Adams. And even those jurors that said, yeah, no way Shannon wasn't involved. No way Yak wasn't involved. We knew. When it came to Young Thug, like, we don't know. And then we had a lady that was interviewed again by Dennis Byron that said, if I was there, Young Thug would have been under the jail. So you can't say that, oh, well, if this other 98% just waited it out, take it to the jury. That the number of incarcerated people wouldn't be higher than that 2% because of a guilty verdict. So I don't know. I think this is just a bad take by Joe. What do y'all think?
People whining about justice is just us. My public defender didn't do this. My public defender didn't do that. Or my lawyer didn't do this. Or my lawyer didn't do that. But you copped out. Why did you cop out instead of stepping up to the plate and letting them throw some balls at you to see if you could hit any? Or whether you'd strike out? No. It always get me mad. And then see all of the badasses, and I used to do that, they'd be talking about, yeah, man, I'm down with the cause, man, you know. And when you're looking at the video of their confession, they have snot running down their nose, like face, like they're 3 years old, tears wetting up the top of their shirt, and they're going through a box of Kleenex, and the detectives are saying, young man, you really need to stop and let us get a lawyer. But I just want to see my mama.
Oh man, what do y'all think about this? What do y'all think about this, especially in Fulton County? Y'all know the DA, you've seen enough of her. You know the district attorney's office in general. You've seen Adam Abadi, you've seen Miss Love, you've seen Miss Hilton, you've seen Mr. Atkins. What do y'all think? Is Joe right? Would this have worked out for Young Thug? And in general, is this something that people who are facing certain charges should do moving forward? Should they just see it to the end? Give themselves a chance with the jury? I don't know. Y'all have to let me know what you think. Wow. Joe was up there cooking Young Thug. Jeez. Yeah, I can't believe this. Shout out to my awesome, amazing Amy for this video. Amazing clip, amazing video. And we're not done with Joe Brown, y'all. You thought we heard the last of Joe Brown. He's about to cook Fannie Willis too, because he's got a lot to say there. A lot I agree with him on as well. What? Jeez. Let me read these super chats real quick and we'll keep it moving. Shout out to Touche in here, dropping the 5 bomb. Says, I personally think a jury of your peers is a misnomer. It's a jury of people who live in the county where the case is being tried. Man, what would that look like? What would a true jury of your peers look like? Say in the Young Thug case, would it be somebody who's 24 to 42, who listens to hip hop, who has kids that listen to hip hop, who know Young Thug? That would be bad for the state, right? Probably. Or would it be I don't know. How do you get a jury of your peers? Because if Young Thug had a jury of his peers, as you're saying, his true peers, or even if you want to say colleagues in there, I mean, this would be an easy open and shut case. Young Thug would have been sitting back there like, y'all hear this BS? Nah. They would have had that verdict back in 5 minutes. So the whole idea and the whole thought behind the jury of your peers is, I think, not only people who live in the same county as you, but people who could see your perspective and give you a fair trial. It's tough. Touche says they should just stop calling it that, because that's not the intent. Yeah, you can't. I mean, who are your peers? I guess that's a great question. We'll actually never know, because Steele never got a chance to put on his defense. Thug went against his attorney's advice, so he can't actually complain. He did not go against his attorney's advice. And I don't think his attorney would advise him to not take a plea. If Young Thug said, what do you want to do, Brian? And Brian says, we're going to win this, man. Just hold out for another 2 to 3 months. We're going to take this one home. I can feel it. I know it. We haven't even presented our evidence yet. And you see how things are falling apart. And then Brian Steele has to say, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's your decision. It's your life. Thug says, nah, I'm getting out of here. Belfast B-Max, great point. Look at Yak's situation. You never know what could happen. I mean, they could, man, once you get inside jail, once you get inside prison, it's a totally different world in there. So, I mean, something could come up, even if you're found not guilty today on all charges. Something could come up in the next 48 hours. Y'all think Fulton County, this system is above board and not corrupt? I mean, come on. What? Going against, sometimes it might just be easier to take a win-win. I don't know. Jury of peers equals national origin and gender. He did go against his attorney's advice. Brian Steele said it on the stand. Steele said he didn't agree with Thug's decision, but he respects it. Ducky Dexter says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. He hasn't walked in anyone's shoes in anyone's case. These people are being treated horribly by the system. There's no way a person locked up will choose to stay while being locked up unjustly. Nene says Thug 100% won on this. We'll see. We'll see how this probation works out. I don't know, man. Even me. Again, and I think the reason Judge Joe Brown has so much smoke for Young Thug is because he's under the name Young Thug, and he's here. I mean, we can argue why he's here, but I think if it were me, I'm just like, man, I just want to get out of here. To sit there and have to fight, be away from your family, you know, your family's suffering, especially if you're the one that's the sole provider for your family. I mean, what are they gonna do? That's right. Yak got jerked. The same thing could have happened to Thug. Truly humble under God. Exactly. Probation sucks, but it's better than jail. If you can keep your nose clean. It just depends. And I mean, he's a convicted felon now. And that don't go away. As I said, we're going to hear more from Judge Joe Brown here shortly, but I want to get into this statement we have from Tony Busby, because he's over here responding to what Jay-Z's trying to do. We're going to get into that in a second. I see we've got another, oh shoot, hold on. We got another super chat that came into. I'll be reading that here in just a second. Shout out to Danny is in here. Shout out to Danny in real life. What does she say? With the 5-bomb. Danny says, how would they explain all the hidden compartments and trap doors full of guns and dope? It was his houses. Yeah. That's a tough one. And I mean, they tried to get Shannon on some other gun stuff too. They even tried to get Yak on some other gun stuff. The gun charges and the drug charges, I think, would have been tough for Young Thug too. But again, I thought it was going to be tough for Yak Gotti, but the jury saw it different. They said, y'all didn't catch him in the house. You can't prove, the state hasn't proven that that was his gun and those were his drugs. Maybe they would say the same thing about Young Thug, even though it was Young Thug's house. Did the state prove that they belonged to him? I don't know. People can have stuff. People can have stuff in your house all the time and you don't know. I'll tell y'all a story. One Thanksgiving, I was at my mom's house and you know, it was mostly family, but there were boyfriends and girlfriends there that weren't family. And, you know, someone that was in the family, we found out on a whim that they were carrying, which we don't have a problem with. I mean, it's totally legal for them to carry. And they were carrying. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, you're carrying, you're in the house. Can y'all imagine if somebody in that house had any issues, the police show up, or it's made known that they were there around the gun? I mean, you just never know. Now, in this situation, it's going to be hard for Thug to argue, yeah, you had all these guns, multiple guns all over the place. You had the drugs. It looks like y'all were setting up, getting ready to distribute. That would have been tough, but he still could have said an easy argument is, I rarely used that house. There were other people that used that house. I had people staying at that house. I don't know whose gun that was. I don't know whose drugs those were. I'm not even at the house like that. So I get what you're saying, Danny, but it seems like it would have been based on how this jury voted and the verdict that they gave. It would have been easy for the defense to say, was Young Thug at the house when you went there? No. Did you see Young Thug with the guns? No. It's going to be tough. Zahir says, nice argument, but it's his house. Doesn't matter I got a possession charge for drugs in my car a long time ago. They weren't my drugs and I didn't know they were there. Yeah, of course. But still, is there reasonable doubt that they were his? If he's not staying out the house, if Young Thug can prove that he's only there 4 times out of the year and somebody else is using it, it all depends on the jury, which is why I would hate anything to go to a jury decision. Thankfully, Yak and Shannon got lucky. I'll put that in quotation marks. Shout out to Touche with the 10 bomb. Says, name or not, does he really try to portray that? Or is he rapping about a culture that does exist? Brown is just annoying here. I'd be shocked if he knew much about Thug or this case besides Clip. Well, whether he does or not, I highly doubt, one, that Judge Joe Brown doesn't know who Young Thug is, and two, I'm sure he's seen, as he mentioned, thousands of Young Thugs before, thousands of dudes who rap about the culture, pretend to be in the culture or a certain type of lifestyle, and they aren't about it. And he mentioned that in this interview. So I think the same thing still applies with him saying, yeah, kind of calling him a coward. But I don't know that I agree. I wouldn't. At the end of the day, I think you can argue, well, if you're going to do the time, if you're going to live that lifestyle, or if you're going to do the crime, you're going to live that lifestyle, either stand up and fight for it and prove your case, or pay for it. Those are your two choices. Judge Joe Brown is saying, man, you got to stand on business. Isn't that what y'all are about? Standing on business? Come on, Young Thug. Les Cleaver says, if you got guests in your house and they bring stuff in there and you're not aware, how can you be charged? Well, it's argued you own it. You're supposed to know what goes on. Correct. Yes. Did I see Little Baby's interview? Yeah, I did. About Little Baby. A-Fit says, don't forget Judge Joe Brown is from Memphis. He's not just from TV. He's seen a fair share of thugs from my city. Yep. In any case, he dodged a bullet. That lady was on Mr. Dennis's podcast or whatever. She would have found them guilty. She was just predisposed to guilt. Yeah, and then it would have been a hung jury. And then we know what would have happened. Nice. Calling him a coward is a bit too far, but take it to trial. Yeah, Young Thug said that himself. Y'all are all right. Charging is different from being found guilty. Two different levels of proof. Yep. And as the saying goes, you can indict a ham sandwich. So you can get charged with pretty much anything. Touche says, I guess my question is, does he really claim to live that lifestyle? If you listen to his music, you would think so. If you listen to his music, you would think so. If you look at the drugs and the guns in his home, you would think so. I don't know. Y'all have to let me know what you think about that. All right, let's go ahead and get into. We've got some new information about our guy, Mr. Tony Busby. Now, Tony Busby has come under a lot of fire recently, and as we know, Jay-Z is not backing down. We've got a new lawsuit filed against Tony Busby saying he gave some woman an STI. We've got Jay-Z wanting to sue him, get this case dismissed, and also wanting Tony to preserve any evidence that they've collected because they have a feeling this may go the entire way. And if it does, they don't want them to get rid of any of the evidence that's been accounted for during this claim or that applies to this claim. So now Tony Busby is coming out and he's speaking out against Jay-Z and the entire situation, the back and forth that's been fired. Shout out to Megan Kuniff over on X. She posted this. She said, Tony Busby has responded to Alex Spiro's, I think it's Spiro or Spiro, still not sure. Alex Spiro's filing for the lawsuit against Jay-Z, calling the inconsistencies in his client's interview run-of-the-mill disputes of fact and saying nothing warrants even summary judgment, let alone sanctions. Really? Let's get into see what he says here. The Busby law firm, and they sent this to Judge Torres. Dear Judge Torres, By letter motion filed on December 13, 2024, defendant Sean Carter notified the court of his intentions to file a motion to strike and a motion for sanctions immediately under the rules 11C2 and 12F. As with defendant Carter's prior letters filed in this case, it is historic. I think I said that word right. Y'all let me know. In tone and substantially groundless. Defendant Carter threatens plaintiff with Rule 11 motion based on a question raised by one single television interview concerning events occurring 24 years ago when plaintiff was 13 years old, allegedly. Because, I mean, there were a lot of issues with that interview, and shout out to NBC for doing that interview. What did we see? We saw the claimant in this case saying that, oh, maybe I misremembered some things. We saw the father saying, if I picked her up in 2020, or not 2020, in 2000, I would have remembered that. It didn't happen. Then allegedly the friend that dropped her off is dead. What? It's just, this raises questions for anybody. 13 years old, 5 years old, 35 years old. It didn't make sense, right? Defendant Carter also asked this court to alter the federal rules of civil procedure in his favor. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to say by abandoning the mandatory 21-day Rule 11 safe harbor period without any legal support or factual justification whatsoever. The former is frivolous and the latter is impermissible. Defendant Carter's threat of Rule 11 motion is frivolous because it characterizes run-of-the-mill disputes of fact as proof that the plaintiff's complaint is baseless. So basically they're saying, yeah, because there's maybe some inconsistencies. Maybe it happened in 2000. Maybe it happened in 2003. I mean, it happens, all right? It's not a big deal, Judge. Whether it happened in 2000 BC or 2003, the case still stands. This happened, okay? And we're going to prove it. None of the factual issues Carter identifies are sufficient even to grant summary judgment in Carter's favor, much less support Rule 11 sanctions. The fact that the defendant or a potential witness does not agree with or recollect the facts alleged in the complaint does not and cannot give rise to a motion for sanctions for filing a baseless complaint. Defendant Carter's threat of immediate sanctions motion on the first whisper of factual uncertainty is just more instance of bullying intended to have a chilling effect on the plaintiff's counsel, and any potential plaintiffs watching these proceedings. So basically, Tony's saying, hey, they pulled a Uno reverse. I was using the media and bringing this case up to try and bring more people forward and trying to get more celebrities to sign a check and get my clients to go away, in a sense, right? Now Jay-Z's flipping it around and he's trying to use this to prevent clients from coming to me and for people coming out and making more accusations. It's a part of the game, Tony. And we're seeing it play back and forth. This is crazy to watch. A Rule 11 motion is frivolous on the additional grounds that expecting a victim of assault over 2 decades ago, when that victim was a minor and, as her interview revealed, also autistic, to have perfect recall of all facts is outrageous. Well, there's some major things missing there. We already went over it. Who picked her up? Defendant Carter twists plaintiff's words when he accuses her, for instance, of guessing at the time of events alleged in the complaints, such as the length of car rides. But New York courts have expressively acknowledged that the plaintiff in this type of case cannot be expected to have exacting recall and command of all relevant facts. And they cite a case there. We recognize that in matters of assault involving minors, as recounted by survivors years after the fact. Dates and times are sometimes approximate and incapable of calendrical exactitude. Have y'all heard that term before? Calendrical exactitude, meaning the exact date. We're learning something new today. And approving allegations spanning a 4-year window of time in which the abuse could have occurred. So interesting. This case he cites here is basically saying it could have happened in 1996, or it could have happened in 2004, or it could happen anytime in between there if they're going based off of a 4-year window, which is interesting because a lot of people are saying, hold on. 2000 wasn't the right year. This would have had to happen in 2003. And that's when Jay-Z and Diddy had the party at the White House with the U-shaped driveway. And that's when these things would have went down. And that's when she saw the Jumbotron, or she watched the event on the Jumbotron. And that's when she met Mr. Madison at the party, and so on and so forth. Or it took place before that. All right, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's never heard of the term calendrical exactitude. Yikes. There is no basis for a Rule 11 motion here, and if filed, such a motion would itself be subject to a Rule 11 motion in response. Of course, we cannot prevent defendants Carter from wasting the resources of this court and all parties in pursuing one. However, defendant Carter's request that the court shorten the filing deadline for this threatened Rule 11 motion from 21 days to 1 day is entirely improper. Carter fails to cite any precedent whatsoever to support this astonishing request because there is none. Carter also fails to cite any reason why the federal rules of civil procedure should be abandoned should be granted. I'll just say, I don't know that word, in his favor in this particular case. Again, there is none. Now, would they be able, and this is a question I would have for the attorneys in the community, would they be able to show this full, maybe unedited interview from NBC to the judge and be able to see, we have this testimony already. We have a witness that this claim is alleging was at a location that they said they weren't there. The father says the daughter wasn't there. He didn't pick her up. He didn't get a phone call. There's no gas station. The house with the U-shaped driveway isn't even white. What are we doing here? It seems like Tony's grasping at straws and wants to take this the full way. It's an interesting strategy, and why he would want to seemingly waste his resources. The only reason I could see he would want to take this the entire way is so that other people who may come out, who may be actual victims of Jay-Z or Diddy, might see this and be like, it's time for me to say something. That's the only reason I could see. Y'all have to tell me what you think. The 21-day safe harbor rule under Rule 11 exists to provide parties and counsel time to assess the objection being made and to withdraw or modify a pleading or other paper if necessary. Okay, and then they cite a case there. The safe harbor period has been recognized by the Second Circuit as a strict procedural requirement. Safe harbor requires motion to be served 21 days prior to filing. It cannot be shortened here because Mr. Carter and his counsel request as much, whether in an attempt to play gotcha or to exert additional pressure on the plaintiff or for any other reasons. From the onset, defendant Carter and his counsel have shrilly maintained an entitlement to different rules and faster procedures, from the expedited briefing on the issue of anonymity and a summary dismissal of the plaintiff's complaint to now a wholesale elimination of the 21-day safe harbor Rule 11. Well, Jay-Z wants this to go away, and I don't blame him. In each instance, the goal has been to blur the facts and rush a decision. But open threat to refer plaintiff's attorneys for disciplinary actions cross the line. I got these. Excuse me. Moreover, well, let's address this real quick. He says, much like this open threat to refer plaintiffs' attorneys for disciplinary actions cross the line. If what Jay-Z is saying is true and all this whole entire claim is BS, which Tony Busby said, oh, well, we didn't do our job and vet her. You deserve some type of disciplinary action. As much as we talked about the law here and we've seen the law twisted by the Fulton County DA's office here in Atlanta, someone needs to be held accountable for this claim even coming to light. And if you didn't do your due diligence and you didn't do your job in certain ways, you need to be disciplined. Like these are people's lives that you have in your hands. These are people's livelihoods at stake. And if there was someone with lesser access and lesser power and lesser ability than Jay-Z, the situation might not be the same. So no, that's not crossing the line. If you messed up, but you've already said, oh, maybe we messed up because we didn't vet her properly, you need to be held accountable. Moreover, outside the courtroom, Mr. Carter has employed tactics of intimidation and harassment. Cry me a river, even more extreme and quite possibly illegal. My firm recently filed a lawsuit in Harris County, Texas, that details how Mr. Carter's company, Rock Nation, and his counsel have bribed my clients to file lawsuits against my firm, threatened former clients, impersonated state officials, and engaged in other behavior far beyond the pale of acceptable conduct. We talked about that in the last video. Make sure y'all go check it out if you haven't yet. Their tactics won't work, and they will be addressed in more detail in connection with the parties' briefing on plaintiff's anonymity. Can't wait to see that. Like Mr. Combs, Mr. Carter is rich, famous, and powerful, and black. I won't go there. Mr. Carter will exert all the pressure he can to intimidate and harass plaintiff, me, or anyone else. The chilling effect of those efforts is substantial, as is the potential chilling effect of a Rule 11 motion being brought in those circumstances. But ultimately, in our court system, the rules are the same for Mr. Carter and for the plaintiffs here. And the Rule 11 safe harbor cannot be, I need to figure out this word, abrogated, cannot be abrogated on a whim. Finally, the defendant Carter raises the status of my admission in the Southern District of New York. As with his previous letters to this court, his December 13th letters include a substantial amount of defamatory suggestions about me, including that I am somehow attempting to circumvent the authority of this court to enforce Rule 11 against me. This is nonsense. I am a member of the State Bar of New York and am admitted to the Eastern District of New York. I intend to apply for reciprocal admission to the Southern District. The fact that I have signed pleadings and letters filed in the court does not reflect any attempt by me to evade responsibility for anything. To the contrary, I have signed those pleadings and papers because I am the lead counsel in this and other similar cases pending in this district. Signed by Anthony G. Busby. What do y'all think? Is Tony Busby right in this? Is Jay-Z right? Who's going to come out with the win? I'm going to keep asking this until this is either dropped or we go to trial, but this is wild. And I'm enjoying this legal back and forth way too much. Now, it's unfortunate that it's at the expense of an alleged victim on both sides. Jay-Z could be the alleged victim and the alleged victim could be the claimant, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know what y'all think. Oh my gosh. Thank y'all for liking the video too. We've already got 1,200 of y'all that like the video. Dang. How are y'all feeling about Tony Busby, man? I know we had some people on the last show on Friday that said they were in Texas and they are not rocking with Tony Busby out there. And it seems like I hear more and more stories. I haven't heard any good stories about Tony Busby, but we'll have to wait and see. And someone asked me about Jay-Z in one of the comment sections. It's like, man, you must really like Jay-Z. No, I don't think in this instance that he's guilty. Is he guilty of something else? Maybe. I don't know. And I honestly don't care. Obviously, I care enough because we're going to make content out of it. But in this instance, this just looks like a really, really messed up BS claim against Jay-Z, and Tony Busby needs to do better. Let me see what y'all are saying. Now they will use their money to beat the other cases. Jay-Z is going to prevail. The time was changed. The target was changed. Now the year has changed. What's next? They're going to change the claimant. Let's say that the year she cited is incorrect. Then the father would have said, no, it didn't happen this year. It happened on that year. He still doesn't recall anything happening. Well, I wish I could go back and find the actual NBC, because again, in these type of situations, y'all have to remember, when it comes to legalese, the wording is very important. And from what I remember, what the father says is he says he would have remembered something like that happening that year. Now, did he say that year, or did he just say in general? Because if he said, yeah, that year, 2000, I don't remember anything like that happening, then you've got an issue. Because if they go back and they say, well, what about 2003? And he's like, oh, well, now that we're talking about 2003, maybe something happened then. We got to be very, very specific with the wording. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this goes moving forward, because based on what they're saying, and I'll have to look up more information on this. But what did they say? There's a 4-year window from Plea versus the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York. Oh, what was going on there? We can probably guess. Oh, man. Yikes. I didn't read this before because I wanted to skip over all the numbers, but Plea versus the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York. And then they're talking about abuse of minors. Oh, hey, I'm gonna let that one go. We recognize that in matters of abuse involving minors, as recounted by survivors years after the fact, dates and times are sometimes approximate and incapable of calendrical exactitude. I'm going to use that phrase in the sentence one day. And approving allegations spanning a 4-year window of time in which the abuse could have occurred. So, I don't know. Monica said, how old is the dad? Does he have Alzheimer's? Who knows? Well, the distance is what gives it away. 20 minutes from a huge event close to the center of the city, to the burbs. Come on. That would be really wild if he tried to parse those words. Well, a lot of people, Touche, are saying that maybe the dad got paid. What? And if they're saying, hey, did this happen in 2000? And he's like, in 2000? Yeah. You're asking me about the year 2000? Mm-hmm. You're asking me if this happened in the year 2000? Yeah. Nope. I mean, technically, it would be telling the truth, right? Now, if it happened in 2003, then we've got another story. So if you articulate yourself nicely of some information that accuses someone of essaying a 13-year-old to the public in a professional way, that's not intimidation. Hey, listen, I don't make the rules, okay? Monica says, not true. I live in Texas and believe Busby is doing a great job. Okay, Monica is Team Busby. I'm enjoying this legal back and forth. I'm not going to lie. I'm learning a lot about the law. I mean, we learned about Rule 11. I definitely, I take that back. I definitely do not want to look up Plea versus the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of New York. I think we all know what happened there. Yikes. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happened. Y'all let me know what you think in the comments. We've got another video from Judge Joe Brown, and I think y'all might enjoy this one a little bit more. And again, this is sponsored by Amy. So y'all give it up and shout out to Amy, man. She's over here putting in the work. She does not take a day off. She's putting in work on this channel. She's putting in work on her own channel. Y'all go subscribe to her channel. The link is in the description. I need to pin it to the top too. But we got Judge Joe Brown up in here is taking some shots at Fani Willis. And I can't wait for this. Now, I admit I have not watched this entire video, and I'm going to drop the link for y'all for this video from Judge Joe Brown, which is on Amy's channel here shortly. But let's go ahead and get into it and see. Hold on a second.
On point.
Oh, and I didn't like the video. Shame on me. Y'all make sure you like the video too. Let's go ahead and see what Judge Joe Brown has to say about Fani Willis and what's going on here inside Fulton County. Oh, man.
That's on point, but it's kind of simplistic, and it shows, what shall I say, somewhat a lack of sophistication in federal and criminal prosecutions.
Talk about it,
Fani
Judge.
Willis has just started her list of problems that are about to be dumped on her shoulders. Remember, I have said over and over and over the last few years about this thing called the appearance of impropriety.
Mm-hmm.
And the odor
That's
of
what
mendacity.
they were talking about. The next thing is Meerschaum, who's an idiot, is about to get caught up in this. Bragg's going to get caught up in it. Letitia James is going to get caught up in it. Fani Willis is going to get caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
Smith, the federal prosecutor who wasn't properly appointed, is going to get caught up in it. And it's a federal conspiracy charge.
He's
now,
talking about RICO, y'all.
For those who are listening the first time, a federal conspiracy, a felonious conspiracy, can arise when people agree to achieve something that is illegal, even if they do it in a legal fashion, in a legal way. Wade has gotten up and testified in front of a congressional committee. He's attempting, apparently, to get testimonial immunity, which is anything he testifies to can't be used in future criminal prosecutions against him, even if he gets indicted. But he's singing like the proverbial bird because he doesn't want to get caught up in this. So what they're doing is they're gathering evidence that a conspiracy occurred amongst those people who did what? They met up in the White House to plot how to get Trump. Met to plot.
I told y'all this, and I'm so glad Judge Joe Brown is talking about this. I told y'all multiple times right before this indictment came out against Trump. Fani Willis and the mayor of Atlanta took a trip up to the White House. And guess who they met with? The vice president. And this didn't happen once. This happened multiple times. So Joe Brown's on point. There's something there. There's a lot of there. Let's keep it going.
And that is a conspiracy, even if they submitted the case to a grand jury, which that's why they're not dropping it, because a grand jury is an independent entity under American law, and they indicted the parties down in Georgia. But that doesn't mean that a future DA is not going to take a look at this and say, hey, this is not RICO crime. I'm not going to get involved in setting up a precedent to say that if you disagree with a political party, you can go against them as though they were organized crime figures. And you see, RICO requires that requires that a person or an entity make or achieve or acquire most of its income from what is substantially criminal activity. There was no question about income or anything like this. This was just political manipulation and maneuvering. And to say that if somebody said, find me some votes, that requires such a precise use of language, even if you took it at the worst that you could construe that. That is just totally out of line with American law and would set forth a horrible precedent. As they observed, any dumb bozo in some back county of the United States could decide to go after a president, vice president, U.S. Supreme Court justice, member of Congress, or the House or the Senate, or any federal official if they didn't like what they did. Now, Fani Willis is facing a conspiracy charge. She's got problems that are going to get her in some much hotter water about refusing to comply with the subpoena demands from the state legislative body. The Georgia Supreme Court has on prior ruling occasions decided it has the authority to
and we covered this live. I mentioned it to y'all. Fani Willis decided not to show up to that hearing. They were presiding over the hearing and they got to the end and they said, "Hey, is Fani here? Did she show up?" They had a gentleman go outside the door, check and see if she was there. She was subpoenaed. She had to be there. He said, "Nope, she ain't here." Nasty work, man.
Inquire into the expenditure of monies that they have appropriated. And we've got $10 million that's missing.
Where'd it go?
$500,000 for juvenile matters.
Gone.
$7.5 million to catch up on delinquent prosecutions. People that have been in jail who have not been indicted within 45 days as per Georgia law, and $2 million for sex crime prosecution. So that's $10 million she can't account for. And they're demanding that this be shown. As you and I have discussed, it looks like what Fani is doing would be allegedly money laundering. For a number of things. That would be all of these cash transactions. We have an IRS problem. We have another problem here, which is making a knowingly false statement to a federal agent or agency, in this case, IRS. She had a demand against her to pay $8,500 in back due taxes. She apparently, according to her testimony, claims she didn't have it, but then according to her testimony at the same time, under oath, she testifies she's got $15,000 in the cookie jar in her house. So obviously that's making a knowingly false statement to a federal agency. And interestingly enough, it wasn't just an interrogation. It wasn't just hearsay. She got on the stand and testified under oath, so it is evidence and usable.
Right.
The problem that she's going to have will be dovetailed in with what we have is a horrible conspiracy.
Rico,
that is, there are these people who are diehard, poor losers, and at all costs, they were going to get Donald Trump and destroy him. Well, they made a mistake when they got together and they had meetings to carry this out or plan this out. That is a conspiracy.
The White House. At the White House,
meetings were in the White House. Kamala Harris was involved in them, and Joe Biden was involved in them.
Yep.
And Biden might have immunity, but Harris would not, and it becomes essentially a federal agent or federal officer or office holder who is engaged in a felonious conspiracy to, in this case, destroy a political rival. That is such an anathema to the American system that it practically shrieks to be made an example of. And I see you guys.
Yes, and Donald Trump, y'all know he's gonna do it. They came after him. Ooh, and we were talking about this. We said, because this is on a state level, how could Trump possibly go after Fani Willis? And it's this situation right here. I've been talking about it for several months now. That meeting at the White House, it was not right. Mayor of Atlanta, Fani Willis, Kamala Harris. And then right after that, we have this indictment. Fani Willis is seeming like she's going to be mentioned in her own RICO.
You got a new cowboy hair. Anyway.
The one from last week, yeah, but I think.
The other one was black, wasn't it?
Yeah, the other one was black. Yeah. That's right.
Okay. Now, This is very bad. Remember the discussions I have had about Nazism and fascism?
Yes.
Nazi is the German acronym for Socialist Workers, National Socialist Workers Party, Socialist Workers. And people sometimes get confused and associate fascism and Nazism with the far right. But in its essence, fascism and socialism are creations of the left side socialist, liberal cabal that was operating in the first part of the 20th century, which seems to be revitalized, resurrected, if you would. And that's what the Democratic Party has been exhibiting. They want to repress the First Amendment. Harris, when she was running, along with that clown Waltz, both said that the First Amendment needed to be repealed or modified so that things like misinformation could be countered and suppressed, which is supposed to endanger democracy if you don't, which is crazy. They want to get rid of the Second Amendment, which is the guarantee that the people will always be equal to their government as a collective entity. The Third Amendment doesn't apply because there's never been a case in the history of the United States involving the violation of the Third Amendment. The Fourth Amendment on search and seizure, Harris on several occasions during the campaign said that essentially probable cause be damned. They were going to come in people's houses and see what they were up to.
Mm-hmm.
And the Fifth Amendment, the right to be free from self-incrimination and due process of laws that applies to the federal government. They wanted to trample on that. The Sixth Amendment dealing with appeals and such like that, and application of the law. They wanted to get around that. So they essentially wanted to abolish or severely constrain the Bill of Rights. And that's precisely what you would see with someone who is attempting to implement fascism. Now, some call it communism, but there is a difference because communism, although it uses some of the same methods, has a different purpose. Communism was viewed as a correction for the evils of capitalism. And when those evils were ended, then communism would stop having a purpose. That's inherent in what Marx and Engels came up with, what Lenin came up with. And even Lenin, the founder of Soviet communism, said that Russia would no longer be communist after 1990 because it wouldn't need it. And he used the specific words glasnost and perestroika. And what did we have? Gorbachev in 1990 said the Soviet Union will be into the era of glasnost and perestroika, just as Lenin said way back in 1990, 70 years before. So what are you getting here? But see, fascism is unending. And the interesting thing about fascism is it's not interested in universal good. It's interested in pushing one side, whether it.
All right. Okay, Joe. I see where you're going with this. I'm going to drop the link to the full video. Joe, it's seeming like he's predicting the future here, and that Fanny's going to be mentioned in some type of ongoing litigation, whether it's from the state of Georgia or it's in a federal indictment. Oh my gosh, that would be wild for her to be mentioned in an indictment like that, because they're gonna have 4 years to fight this. I don't know if they're gonna need that much time based on what was going on. And as I mentioned in the chat, she'd probably be the first one to get thrown under the bus. What do y'all think? Let me know how your feelings are about this. And is Judge Joe Brown right? Let me know. Wow. Sharice says it would be the state. It would not have to be the state because they met with the vice president of the United States, Sharice. So when it comes to this case specifically and the charges are the indictment against Trump, yes. But when it comes to the collusion that Judge Joe Brown is talking about with them going to the White House, meeting with Fannie Willis, meeting with Joe Biden. I don't know about them meeting with the president. Meeting with Kamala Harris, the back and forth. It's not looking good. Not looking good at all. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Shout out to all 1,200 of y'all that liked the video. Thank you all so much for the support. Make sure if you haven't yet, you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any time that we go live or drop a new video. We actually have another live stream we're going to be doing tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you enjoy music from some of the independent artists who are here in the community, make sure you stop by and check that out. It's going to be a good time. We're giving away some cash. You get an opportunity to win just for showing up to the show. So if you're interested in that, make sure y'all stop by. I see y'all in the chat too. It's called Karma, ClassE. Rico gonna bite her in the ass. I'm here for it. Me too. Me too. The injustice has to stop somewhere, and hopefully we'll see some movement there. I tried to do it with my vote. Did not prevail. We'll see what the next steps are. Lock Willis up for Rico and put her in the Fulton County jail. Y'all like the video on your way out. I appreciate everyone who's here. Y'all know what to do. Have a great rest of your day. And as always, keep growing, keep pushing, keep it classy. We go. Peace.